Hi guys, I'm Frankie, your local entrepreneur here in Stockholm, and I so happen to be also a former scientist. So in case you don't know that, go and check out my previous video where I talk about how I became an accidental entrepreneur. Since I participated in this alumni careers event, I thought it would be good to go over some of the questions I received. Putting it all together, questions I received at an alumni event for science, careers, post-graduation, me choosing the non-conventional path of entrepreneurship. I got asked specific questions that maybe will resonate with other people now considering the same path. That's what we're going to talk about today.
We're in trances, going off to different places, different planets, empty-handed.
Because I'm a former scientist, I get invited a lot to talk about careers post-graduation here in Stockholm, especially for science graduates. And considering that not a lot of people in my program, which was in biotechnology, ended up becoming, a business owner and making a life out of being an entrepreneur, then I get invited to these things, and I often have to bring in different perspectives because I feel like in a lot of ways, since I didn't pursue a PhD or something more academia related or even industry related, I need to somewhat justify my choices. Not that I should have to, but I think it's good to bring in different perspectives to these alumni career events because that's part of how you give back. And I also was the founding member of my master's alumni network, so I thought, okay, why not I return, because I've actually done this once before, almost right after I graduated, but I've returned now this year. Since I participated in this alumni careers event, I thought it would be good to go over some of the questions I received during this time, because I thought if these questions resonated with the audience then it also makes sense to share them, or my answers or some of my insights for these questions, with everybody else on the YouTube channel. After I answer the questions I got on Mentimeter that I didn't get the chance to answer in person, you can check out the recording of this talk. So if you're interested in, or you're a job seeker in Sweden at the moment and you don't know how to pivot or how to become an entrepreneur, maybe you're looking for an opportunity to create your own opportunities. So maybe entrepreneurship is a path for you, but you're not really sure if you have all the right, conditions to pivot that way. That might be an interesting follow-up talk to check out, but that's going to be coming later in the video. So now I'm going to answer the questions I received from fellow students who have yet to graduate from my master's program in molecular techniques in life science, or as I often refer to it, it was a bioinformatics, biotechnology degree. So let's go over them. Want to support the work that I do? Consider maybe donating in the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. This will help me keep affording my amazing video editor, who so happens to put up with me and edit all of these videos whenever I do decide to make them once in a blue moon. Thank you! First question I received was, all of you seem so accomplished in some way or the other, mainly varied experiences and social skills. What hope is there for us, less socially inclined and whose CVs are empty? By the way, all of these questions are anonymous. The reason why I'm using these questions for the video and the YouTube is so more people can benefit from the answers. And I think these are general questions that a lot of people wonder about before they move forward with their careers after education, after finishing university. So in this question, I feel that there are two problem statements identified. The first one is that this person seems to be saying that because they are less socially inclined, or they're socially debilitated in some way, not as outgoing as I am, or not as, overly, social as many of us appear to be if we've had different experiences and we've put ourselves outside of our comfort zone, then if you're less socially inclined than that, you may be believing that, there's no hope for you. Okay, that's one problem statement. And the second one is they feel that their CV is empty. So why have hope if your CV is empty? You can't be as accomplished or as competitive as maybe someone with my CV. I would like to address this question with these 2 problem statements identified and tackle them one at a time. What hope is there for us less socially inclined? First, my question is to you, what makes you say that you are less socially inclined? Do you believe that I've always been this eloquent, socially, aware, or even open to new experiences and people? No, I have not. So I can tell you, you can work on it. So the question is more, do you want to work on it? Do you want to work on those social skills, interpersonal skills? If you do, there's a path for that. You can try new things, you can volunteer, you can apply for internships or unpaid work, or be in a supportive operational role, administrative role. Those roles usually are a pathway to other types of roles, like in leadership positions. Just to see, is this something I would like to do? Is this something I can connect with? But let's say you do not want to be more socially inclined, or you don't want to be more of a people's person. You really are introverted and you really don't want to do anything that relates to people, which will be hard because most of our world relates to other people. But what does that look like? Okay, maybe you really are the typical, stereotypical lab rat. You just want to be in the lab. You don't want to talk to anybody. You just want to be working on your projects, your research. Fine. Now, there's still opportunities for you to add those experiences, internships in the lab, to your CV. So I don't think that there's a one size fits all when it comes to being socially inclined or aware. But if you are more extroverted, obviously it will be easier to add things to your CV, because then you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. You're actually trying new things. And not every extroverted person does that. So it's really just about your comfort level and putting yourself outside of that comfort zone. And maybe you'll notice that, okay, I don't want to be mingling with a million people and trying my hardest to be a people's person if I'm not. That's fine. So instead, what you can do is play to your strengths. So if you're better at one-on-one, if you're better reaching out to one person or finding one mentor, you can do that. Small numbers, small scale. You don't have to do the big, parties, life of the party style of activities, okay? So that's one thing I would say. You don't have to be an extrovert to succeed. And this is very important. You just have to allocate time to build meaningful relationships with other people that either function like you or that they are comfortable, building that relationship in any other type of way. Like I said, for example, one-on-one, as opposed to being public speaking, one-to-many, right? Maybe that's not your thing. That's fine. It can be in a crowded room. It can be in small groups. It can be in small teams. There's many different ways of building rapport with someone and building relationships and gather experience, but you don't necessarily need to become a completely new person to do so, okay? So I just want to say that just because you're comparing yourself to maybe someone who's like me, who tries many different things or who wants to always be surrounded, like meet new people, and be very people facing and interacting with others, you don't have to compare yourself to me. You're your own person. So if you're more introverted, I suggest you just focus on those strengths and build rapport and build relationships with people that are like you, who also will share the same interests. And then within that circle, you'll find your people. Those are people that may energize you. That might be more one-to-one time, more quality time, in smaller teams, smaller groups. That might be what it looks like to you. Or maybe it might be digitally. If you don't want to do it in person, it can be a digital forum, a digital outlet, a platform. It doesn't have to be person to person, one to many. It does not have to be like that. And then the second part of the statement of the question, which was, what hope is there for those of us whose CVs are empty? Right? This sounds a bit dramatic. If you're at a top university like Karolinska Institutet or KTH Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm, your CVs are likely not empty. Otherwise, how did you get here? So don't be so dramatic. I would say that even if your CV were completely empty, the good news is you can start filling it up. You can fill it up with things. And perhaps if you're a first year master student, or if you're still early in your career, you'll probably have more time on your hands than not. like you don't have a family to look after, or maybe you don't have other responsibilities looking after elderly parents, whatever. So instead, you can spend some time, doesn't have to be your whole personal time or free time, but take a chunk of your free time during any given week and allocate it towards skill building, towards maybe filling up those CVs with things that are meaningful and things that reflect well in the job market, things that build skills, experiences, activities, volunteering work that build skills. I always recommend finding things that you're deeply aligned with because it will be easier to stick with. So if you prefer more quiet activities or like research heavy activities, things that get you in the lab more often than not, try to find internships that are going to fill those, experiences up. You can also, if you are more socially inclined or you want to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, you can also join clubs, associations. Universities are a great place for this, right? You can find people much more easily that share your interests, and then you can do those activities in those clubs and associations. So I used to do that a lot in university. Every experience counts. So just try to think, what am I doing this for? Does it align with me, my interests, what I want to do in life? And if yes, do that experience. Put it in your CV. You can fill it up. The second question was, how do you think taking a break affects opportunities with employers? I know it might be different for entrepreneurs, but since you've tried various things, I'm curious how that played out for you. I'm wondering what you meant by taking a break, so I'm going to break it down, my response, depending on what maybe you potentially said. So I think when you say taking a break, because I said I took a little gap between my graduating from university and actually starting my business or starting my company. But during that gap, I was doing, jobs and gigs and all kinds of other things like projects still. So that's not necessarily a gap on the CV. But let's say that you do have a gap, if that's what you meant by taking a break. Like, let's say maybe you had a child, so maternity, paternity leave. That's the reason why you had to have that gap on your CV. Let's say you were pursuing a passion project that that gave you that gap on the CV, or you were taking a sabbatical, or just trying to take a gap here to figure things out. That's still a gap. That's still a break on your CV. So talking to those experiences, if it is a real gap that people can tell, all right, there's missing time here, or maybe you will even put it on the CV. So how do you approach that? Is that going to affect your chances with employers? I'm going to address this question first. Today, I'm actually a recruiter for my own company, right? I hire my own people, my own team. But I need to preface that I have no formal training or education in recruitment, HR, human resources, or talent acquisition. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you and the advice I'm going to give you and what I know to be true is, a reflection of that. Take it with a grain of salt. But what I can tell you from my experience applying for over 300 jobs post-grad, and from what I get online through, forums, LinkedIn posts, people seeking, help, jobs, all these things, and conversations I've also had recently and as far back as years with fellow job seekers, what I can tell is that for many recruiters who are checking through the CV, it does not look good to have a gap on their CV. So if your question is how worried should I be about maybe taking a break or having a gap, a lot of recruiters will be confused or suspicious of a gap on the CV. So what can you do about it, right? It's like they see a gap or they see a break, that you took a break to do maybe other things, and they can't quite comprehend, like in their little brains. I find this so funny. They can't comprehend that people's lives are not a linear list of accomplishments and contributions chronologically set, like how it is in the CV. They can't comprehend that. So you need to explain it to the recruiter. And I think it's your job, because it's just a fact. They're not going to understand why you took that break, or they will hold it against you. Who knows? But the truth is, it's just a fact that maybe they won't comprehend it. They won't understand why you took that break or why you took that gap. But then it's your job, because that's a fact, it's your job as an applicant to be able to explain that to them. Okay, what does that look like? Other people may advise you to pretend that it's not there, like avoid mentioning it or even including it in your CV. But I personally don't like to assume recruiters are dumb. Like, I think they can do the math. Like, they can go and look, okay, there was a gap if I subtract these years, and like there was something missing here, right? So I say lead with honesty, right? And what this looks like is you can do an accusation audit. And this means that you can say, hey, you know, I did have a gap during this time. What does that gap or that break look like? This is all the things that I was doing. A gap is never really a gap. Explain the gap. And I think when you start with that, like you're leading with honesty, you're giving that accusation audit, like saying what they would hold it against you about it, then they can't hold it against you. You own that. You own it. So you own the gap, you own the break. This means if there's a significant gap, like say 6 months or more in your CV, write it in. What was it that you were doing during that time? Write it in the CV if you know it's going to be something that they point out. Okay, more than a year, especially gaps that are longer than a year. If it's something that it's already in your CV, but you're afraid of bringing it up, or that they're going to bring it up during the interview stages, lead with that. You can say, so when they ask you, tell me about yourself, you can mention briefly what, you know, experiences can be helpful for the job that they're recruiting you for, and then mention, and I also had this break for this reason, and this is what I did during this time. That's it. It's as simple as that. Lead with honesty. They can't hold it against you. Now, beyond an actual gap, beyond an actual like thing that you can explain, be it unemployment, paternity, maternity leave, be it looking after a sick or elderly family member, if the way you asked this question was to understand how to communicate or explain away why you maybe took a break from your traditional career. Let's say that you tried something new and it didn't work out, or maybe you just tried it for 6 months and then you went back to looking for jobs in your field, or maybe it was something temporary because you needed to pay your bills, let's say. If that's the kind of break you mean in your CV, in your career timeline, I would say that kind of break you can still convert into a meaningful experience if it makes sense for the job you're applying to. And this comes down to, are you tailoring your CV? Are you, making it, curating it to the job and the role you're applying to? If that gap or what you did during that time, that break, does not apply to the job, then don't include it, right? Don't include it in the CV for that particular job, or don't include it in the interview. So if you have many different experiences, because that's my case, like I loved interdisciplinary. I would try many different things, and sometimes when you have tried all these things and you're a multi-potentialite, there's a crazy urge to like put it all on the paper, because you're like, oh, people will appreciate my interdisciplinary, interfunctional, attitude and mindset, holistic mindset. Most recruiters will not appreciate that. So you don't want to do that. So if it's about showing that break was meaningful, if there's something relevant there to the position you're applying for, then you should include it in the CV. If there isn't, then you don't need to mention it, because it wasn't like any other type of break that related to unemployment or otherwise, right? You need to be able to personalize your CV enough for the job you're applying for. You need to curate your CV so it only includes the most relevant experiences for that specific job. And recruiters, they often worry if they see too many unrelated jobs to what you're applying for with them. They think, oh, this person jumps around too much, they're doing too many things, they're not committed. So they're going to think, if I recruit or hire this person, they're going to jump ship soon after. So that's going to be, make me look bad, not make me look like I invested in the right person or I bet on the right person. At this point, anybody can be like that. They spend more time recruiting, like 6 months of recruitment as opposed to like 1 month. It's just completely insanity, only for people to turn over, the industry turnover be like 6 months. So then they recruit them for as long as they stay in the company. Anyway, they can't really prevent that, but it looks bad for them. So if they see that you've jumped around a lot, yes, that is definitely something that a lot of recruiters are on the lookout for. They think that shows you're uncommitted. So if you don't want to come across that way, what you can do is just show the relevant experiences to what you're applying for. My advice, I used to do this, is you keep a document where you list all of the work, all of the experiences, volunteer, hobby, paid, unpaid, internships, whatever. List it, everything out, and keep it in the format you would be able to copy and paste to your CV directly. So keep it in the right format, with the dates that you worked there, like the time frame, the job title, the supervisor, maybe the name of the organization or company, the location, if it was remote, if it was hybrid, whatever. And then underneath you keep the skills and contributions, results that you yourself accomplished during that experience. So if you keep a document formatted in the same way that you would format your CV template, and you list all of the experiences, like can be 10 pages of experiences you've had, if you've done many different things, then you list all of them. You can even list them by categories or themes or industries. Then when it's time to apply for a job, you can go to this document and you can see, okay, this job is in tech. So I'm gonna go and look at all the experiences I had that happen to be in tech or related to technical skills that now they're listing on this job description. And here's what I do next. I take my CV template, right, and a separate document, and then I go and I copy and paste only the specific experiences on my whole list of experiences that relate to the technical skills and tech experiences that I can add to my CV. And then I build an entire CV just by copying and pasting from this original comprehensive list of experiences. That's my recommendation. After a while though, if you do this long enough in different verticals, in different niches of job roles and positions that you're applying for, and maybe industries. Let's say I was applying to media jobs at one point, then I was applying to tech jobs, and then I was applying to customer service jobs, these are all different types of industries or roles. Then after a while, if you copy and paste things enough, you're going to run out of experiences, right? So you'll get about 5 to 6 CVs that are somewhat tailored by experience, vertical, so by industry vertical. And then based off of that, you can reuse those, and those become your tailored or customized CVs. So if you're afraid of looking like you had a break, you don't have to mention the break if you're actually tailoring the CV very well. And this is also known, maybe you don't even need to do it chronologically. You can do a functional CV, which is essentially a more skills-based, non-chronological CV that just shows what you can do, that reflects the job description, what they're looking for. And that way you avoid having to be questioned about a potential break in your CV or a potential gap in your CV. But if you meant like a gap like maternity, paternity leave, unemployment, having to take time off because you are yourself on sick leave or something like this, or someone else you cared for, then that kind of gap you can actually include, because people's lives still are made up of those gaps. And I think you should just lead with honesty and say, hey, I was being a caretaker, I was being a caregiver or a parent. So those you can explain very well, and people shouldn't judge you. And if they judge you for that, well, then maybe that's not the right place for you to be applying for a job. They don't sound so nice. How does one build a network? The $1 million question, really. Yeah, this is the $1 million question. How does one really build a network? Because I was talking a lot about network building and building relationships, things like this. And when we talk about networking, people always get this knee-jerk reaction. Ew, like, I don't want to network. Talking to people scares me. I've been there, done that. At the end of the day, it's who you know, and that's it. Like, if you know the right person, the right time, right moment, they will remember you. They will give you the right opportunity as a job seeker. And especially in Sweden, we know a lot of things are quite based on your social circle, the people you know. They only hire people they know and they trust. So I'm sorry, but you need to conform to this if you want to stay here. So I personally came up with 3 points that you should know about how to network, and specifically networking in Sweden. But can be applicable everywhere, really. The first point is you should know your agenda. Everybody has an agenda. People often forget this. Don't hit them with your agenda right away, right? Like, you don't be like, I'm here because I need to get a job in the next 2 months. You know, don't hit them with that. But you should know what it is. Like, sometimes people going to these networking events, and I see it, they're like this lost puppy, you know, they're like this lost puppy in the crowd, and I can tell, like, they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Why am I even here? I'm an introvert. I hate crowds. I hate talking to people. Why did I come out on a, you know, Friday evening just to do this networking event? I'm like, yeah, why are you there? I have the same question, because if you have that body language, if your body language is communicating that, nobody will want to talk to you. You're like literally like a lost puppy, but less cute than a puppy. Your question should be knowing your agenda. Why do you want to build a network to begin with? Like, maybe you don't need one. Maybe you already have a job, or maybe you already have other things. Like, don't be pushed into a hype of building a network if you don't even know what you... Okay, everyone needs a network at some point, but let's say you really don't. Then don't do it. But you need to know why. So if you do need to build a network, which is probably majority of you, especially if you're thinking about how do I pivot, or how do I get a job post-graduation, or if you currently are unemployed and you're no longer studying, like, how do I actually get myself, you know, my foot in the door to get that job, that opportunity. This is for you. So you need to know your agenda. Why do you want to build a network? A lot of people build a network for different reasons. Is it for research? I call it recon. You know, are you doing reconnaissance? You know, are you kind of testing the waters? What's out there? What kind of jobs? What kind of people? What kind of fields can I tap into with my skill set, with my CV? Is it for getting your name out there? Sometimes I network for just this. What does that mean? Building a personal brand, getting people to follow you on LinkedIn if you want to build a platform on LinkedIn, for example. Just showing face. Sometimes I show up to places and, you know, I have one of those, I guess I have this like girl next door face that everybody trusts automatically, but they don't really know where to place me. So often people are like, I've seen you around. I've seen you somewhere. Like, where have I met you? And I was like, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. I have no idea where we've met. But it's possible. It's possible you've seen my face, or, you know, you just saw someone that looked very similar to me and then you think that we know each other. And sometimes that's what people network for. Just to be kind of repeatedly recognized, so that when it comes time for me to actually leverage that connection, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen you at my events, so I want to come and support yours if I'm asking you to do that, right? So these are some reasons to network. Another reason could be you're pitching yourself. You're pitching yourself. You're like, oh, I need to get, I don't know, I'm looking for this job, or I'm looking for this opportunity, or for an internship, you know, here's who I am, and you want to put yourself out there. Or maybe you're pitching a project or a company, right? Or you're looking for investors. It could be about finding jobs, internships. It could be about meeting potential referrals. So like people who would refer you to a job at their company internally, because we know a lot of jobs work that way, right? 70% of jobs, I think it's something like that. I'll put the stat down in the description box. But 70% of jobs, I think in Sweden, they're not advertised. So where are they? Internally, in job boards. They're internally in discussions in these teams and these meetings that you're not part of because you're not part of the organization yet, right? But guess who is? The current employees at that organization. So maybe you want to meet that person, that future colleague that will refer you internally. And sometimes they even have incentives to do so. So for them, it's a good thing. Like they want to refer people because they want to get money. Maybe those incentives are monetary or a prize reward. Who knows? So maybe you want to find those future colleagues, or maybe you want to find mentors, someone to shadow, someone to ask questions, seek advice from. So maybe people network for that reason. Or maybe you just want to make friends. Maybe you are very social and extroverted, or maybe you're not, and that's the reason why you have no friends. So maybe you want to go and network just to make friends with like-minded people who share your interests, your ambitions, your passions. That's why people network sometimes too. Sometimes you just need to put yourself out there. And that means networking for the sake of networking, which leads to you practicing your interpersonal skills. You need to practice to make you feel more comfortable, make you kind of feel more at ease talking to strangers, talking to people you don't know well, making you more at ease asking informative or informational questions that you're trying to gather insight into the career path or an industry that you don't know much about but you're looking to go into. These are also reasons to practice your skills, reasons to network. Then the second thing is you need to find the right people. Once you know your agenda, you need to ask, okay, where do I find these people that can help me with my goals or my agenda, why I'm here networking? And sometimes there's going to be spaces you don't fit into, or they're not the right people that you need to find to leverage those connections. So you need to think, okay, should I go on LinkedIn and use keyword search? So if I'm looking for a job in pharmaceuticals, okay, pharmaceutical company, associate, something like that, right? Search, use keyword search. And there's so many filters. You can search by location, you can search by job title, you can search by company, you can search by there's so many filters on LinkedIn. You can go and search away your hours, okay? Or you can, for example, attend either a general kind of networking event where they're like, oh, we're just having a networking event, at school or with this association. Just show up, talk to each other. This is how you meet people. Or it can be a quite niche networking event. Like if you attend these networking events, you can look for them ahead of time. A life science industry networking event at the park for Skaden, which so happens to be also a life science building. Okay, then I know I'm going to meet life science representatives there and professionals. So that's where I should be. Or if I'm interested in patent law, okay, so where am I going to find patent law? Maybe I need to go to a patent law webinar, or be it online, right? That's a webinar, or a seminar in person, a workshop, or a free, and a lot of these, by the way, they're all free. People, they're hosting these as brand builders. So they're hosting these types of events to build their own brands. I know AWA in Stockholm, they did that a while ago. They had like a patent law workshop about AI, AI info products. Okay, so if I make an info product with AI, with ChatGPT, then can I patent that? Can I copyright that, trademark it? So they did that, and then they were kind of selling their services, but they were really giving information out. And that was also a good way to meet other people who are in this field or looking to go into a field like this. So these are some things. Go and be specific, either if you already know your niche, if you already know which industry, job, or kind of position you want to get. Or if you don't know your niche, go more general and then, narrow it down from there. After you meet a couple of people, you can kind of sense what careers and what, industries are the best fit for you. That might be another way that you can find the right people to be talking to and networking with. You don't want to just network with everybody after a while, because you want to, again, you have to meet those goals, that agenda. So be, focused on that. And the final way that you can find the right people, or find where those right people are going to be found, is by asking friends, family, professionals in your life. You can ask them, hey, like, I'm looking to get a job in, healthcare, and specifically health informatics. Who do I speak with about this? Maybe someone in your circle will know. Maybe your PI, maybe your lab manager, maybe your PhD supervisor. I don't know, someone around you, right? If you're in a research environment, there's definitely a lot of people there that might know other people. If you're in a different type of environment, maybe ask someone you're, friends with in a different association or an acquaintance. Hey, it seems like you know a lot about a lot of different people. Do you know where I can find people in this field? Political science, in international human rights. Like, do you know where I can find these people? You just ask. What can they say? The worst they can say is no. Then you move on. You ask someone else. So that's how you can find these right people. And the way to network is focus on the agenda that you're bringing in, and then try to pinpoint which are the key stakeholders, key players that I need to speak with to form those connections with, to build that network with. And then you go to the third step, which is you build the relationships over time. Now, networking isn't just about meeting people or meeting random people or just adding more people to your LinkedIn. I think whenever people add me to LinkedIn, that's why I have like all these I will show you. I'll take a screenshot. I have all these instructions how to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very snobbish about it. I was like, do not connect with me if we've never met in person, if we've never shared a discussion or a conversation, be it in passing or online, or if you've never even commented on my post or gotten my attention any other way. Like, why am I going to connect with you? I don't connect with random people. I really don't do that. Maybe other people do, but that's not how I operate, okay? So it's not just about having one random connect LinkedIn request. It's about building a relationship over time. So it's not just that one touch point the first time you meet each other. It's about building the connection, the relationship over time. And ideally, you can follow up after the first interaction, because that will make you more memorable. Oh, we spoke about, this subject, or we spoke about, AI in medicine, but I'm very interested in this. Here's a cool podcast I'm listening to. Add value in some way. If you add value in that exchange, not only are they going to be impressed, hey, they remember what we discussed, and they just added value by adding a resource or something interesting to the debate, or maybe a paper that was discussed, or maybe a paper that you thought of in the topic that you talked about with this person. And then you add that value and you say, it was really nice to meet you. Don't ask for anything. That's the first point. That's the first contact point, touch point online. After the in-person maybe touch point where you connected with them on LinkedIn. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for favors. Don't ask for a job then. Okay, you let that sit. And then you can build a relationship over time. Ideally, if you're not in a rush, right? Usually you're in a rush if you need a job tomorrow. That's being in a rush. But if that's not your situation, if you have time to build on that relationship, what you can do is you can take time to build that relationship, okay? And this means you're going to only use that relationship or that connect or that leverage that person's network or what they know when the time comes, much later. So when you need it later on, not now. That's the best case scenario. So all of this to say, networking and relationship building over time should be happening, should be taking place before you need the help, before you need that favor, before you need that job. You should be working on your networking skills. You should be working on building your network before it becomes necessary. This is key. So the main advantage you have right now, if you haven't graduated or if you are not currently looking for a job, is you can start building that network now. You can start preparing for the time that you will need it. So then you build a relationship over time, and then when you do, and you keep adding value to the relationship or maybe having several touch points, and then eventually when you do need that connect or you need that referral or you need that, favor, hey, can you introduce me to this other person who may be able to give me a job? Then you already have a relationship, you've built rapport, and the person will be happy to do that. But if you hit them like that, after the first interaction, they'll just think, this person is just so opportunistic. They just want to take advantage of me. Oh my goodness, who do they think they are? Self-indulgent, narcissistic. They only care about themselves. That's why they connected with me. They didn't even care about our conversation. They just wanted to get something out of me. And you don't want to be that person. That person, is not going to get that job. So you don't want to be that person. So I believe that you build relationships as you study, as you work, as you do your research. And when you need to leverage them, they will be there. They're already in place. Try to focus on networking ahead of time before you need to leverage that network for anything you need. And for more tips on this, I recommend you always try to add value at every step, because you never know who might be that network connection that will get you that next opportunity. You never know. Sometimes people surprise you. Maybe someone is unemployed now and maybe you want to give value to them. You want to maybe share a resource or share a contact. And if you do that for them now, when they become employed and maybe then you're unemployed, they will return the favor. They will be so grateful, right? But you don't want to do it with this reciprocity in mind. You want to do it freely, like you really do give freely. But we know nothing is free in life. So at some point, you believe, if you believe in this karmic, attraction, law of attraction, I believe a lot in this abundance, right? Like there's plenty to give and plenty to receive. So if you put out into the world value, if you do for others what you wish people would do for you, it will come back around. I promise you. It's happened to me so many times. And it's not when I'm asking for it. It's when you let go of those expectations, you give in kind, you give in goodwill, in good faith, it comes back to you. It's happened to me so many times. So I think that's a starting point for you in networking. If you don't know where to start right now, or you don't personally maybe have an agenda at the moment, start by giving value to others. And when it's time, when you need someone to return the favor to you, it will come easily. People will be so grateful, so appreciative of you, of your connection, of the value you've been bringing to the relationship, to the network. They will reciprocate, I promise you. But you need to also ask. When the time comes, you need to be able to ask, to be vulnerable and say, hey, I need help now. And I think that's also something a lot of people in our society struggle with, asking for help. I know I've struggled with that in the past. Now I'm a little bit better. And maybe you're thinking, I have nothing to give. I'm just, a nobody. I'm just a student. I don't have that many connections or network or contacts. Everybody has something to give. Don't be limiting yourself, okay? Look at that list of experiences that I mentioned that you should write. Look at that list and see, what have I done that I can leverage and do for others, that I can be of service with? What skills, what contacts do I have? Who do I know? Someone out there might need that. I will be leaving some more Swedish resources, specific Swedish resources for you to check out if you're a job seeker, or if you're confused about how to network in Sweden, or if you're like an introvert who's struggling to maybe break out of your shell and actually build connections and go out and talk to people and try to get opportunities that way. I will leave some more, different links in the resources in the description box below. But generally speaking, if you have more questions or if you have any advice for people out there based on these 3 questions I received, comment down below. I would love to hear what you thought. If you think that my advice tracks, if it makes sense for the Swedish context or outside of it. And yeah, comment down below what you think can be good ways to network, to leverage, your contacts, give value, and to also look at your CV a little bit differently and be able to communicate differently what gaps in your CV or specific experiences in your CV actually mean and what they actually give. And now, without further ado, please check out my talk at the MTLS Alumni Career Day back a few months ago in May, where I went and shared my story and shared the future of work in Sweden, in the world, and how you yourself can maybe leverage that network, leverage your skills to become an entrepreneur and potentially create your own opportunity. So if you're a job seeker, if you're unemployed, if you're a student wondering what's next, if you're just looking for a career pivot, this may be for you, especially if you came from a scientific or STEM background like I did. Enjoy.
Amazing. And our next speaker is Francesca, and she's also the one that started this MTLS Alumni Network, but I guess she will talk also more about that. So, yeah, she's taking a bit more different than what we usually expect from these masters.
Yes.
Like a different career journey. So, yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Konstantinos. So I realized that I'm in this tough spot between lunch break and the other speakers, so I'll try to keep this very brief and very to the point. And I realized as well when I was listening to all of you, and I already expected this, that my presentation was going to be a little bit different. So keep an open mind, and if you have questions, come and talk to me during the lunch break, okay? So why is it going to be a bit different? Because I'm not going to talk about my research, I'm not going to talk about my background. You can come and ask me about this. I had many experiences in science, government, tech. I worked in a startup. I worked in many different environments, and it all led me to today. Not doing anything related to academia, science, or the tech world. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you get to this journey of becoming an entrepreneur, because that's today how I describe myself. So I'm Frankie, everybody calls me that, and I have been living here in Stockholm for 5 years. I graduated from this program 3 years ago, so Daniel and Julia were my peers. Maria was actually the one who took that first call with me, so yes, she convinced me to join this master's. And since then, my journey has been a bit different from, I guess, the majority of graduates, science graduates. I ended up becoming an entrepreneur here in Stockholm, not working at all with science, but being surrounded by a lot of the same network, actually. A lot of the people that I met through the master's still are relevant to my work today. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. All right, but before we do so, you can submit your questions. I just thought it would be a little bit more interactive. You can submit your questions all throughout the presentation, so then at the end we can upvote and downvote on the most interesting ones, so we don't spend too much time kind of trying to go through that. And then also I like to keep a record of everything that I do, so next time I prepare a presentation like this, I know where I needed to clarify and what I missed discussing. So if you have questions, you can submit them as I go through this. Just to get started, can I get a raise, like a hands up? Who's here in the first year of the master's? First years? Okay, so mostly first years. So second years is, I'm assuming, everyone else, aside from the speakers. All right. Who here is an international student, meaning non-EU? Okay, so like about, 40%. Okay, perfect. And what about EU, but not Swedish? Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to get a sense for that because I wasn't sure exactly how many of the audience members were going to be international versus local Swedes versus EU, because my presentation will be more relevant to you, I think, in that perspective. So I myself, I'm very privileged. I have 3 citizenships. So yeah, I got passport privilege to begin with, Portuguese, Canadian, and Swedish. And because of that, totally unrelated, but I understand the struggles of being an international. I've lived abroad across the world in many different places. And I also wanted to cater this presentation more towards internationals because I know you're going to be struggling with your visas. So this is a bit like a reality check. And I think we have kind of been gearing towards this the whole morning. But I wanted to really give you that perspective. So to backtrack, just so you know a little bit about my journey, how did I end up in entrepreneurship? By accident, mostly. This was me 3 years ago. I was a scientist, just like all of you, I feel like you are. And I was very much involved also in the community. So I had like 5 jobs while I was doing this master's. If you checked out the blogs from KI, I was writing them. I also enjoyed all the activities that the lab environment provided. I enjoyed it more than the lab work itself. So that's what you see here, in case you cannot tell. This here is my lab, Linarchen lab at KI. They do transcriptomics, and while I was doing my master's there, I realized, why do I enjoy the lab activities more than I enjoy the actual lab work, right? That was something that I should have paid attention to. And even though I got my results done and I was doing my science and everything was going well, I did not get a lot of joy from that. What I did get joy from was plenty of this community involvement. So I actually was in charge of TEDx KI, so I kickstarted it here at KI. Now it's going on its like 5th year. I was part of it for 3 years in a row, and then when I graduated, I just stayed on for an extra year as an advisor. I really enjoyed like doing all kinds of things related to non-science backgrounds and non-science skills. And then another thing that happened 3 years ago was I was actually part of the group. I was, if you want to call it, the founder of this MTLS network, because I saw a real need for community. We needed to talk to each other. We kind of are scattered across 3 universities, so that meant that we never really belonged to any one of them, and that left a lot of challenges when you were looking for jobs or looking for even opportunities. And because of that, I'm just going to backtrack here. Because of that, I wanted to propose this network, and I ended up creating 2 jobs through it. So that should have already been a hint. Okay, what do I need to focus on moving forward? And when I graduated, I had a bit of a health scare. I'm fine now. And I realized that a lot of the things that I like to do, my strengths, they were not truly aligned in the science fields. Okay, so they were not aligned with academia. And what did that mean? So how do you know what strengths do you have? Because that's one way that you can figure out what you want to do next. And I like to come up with questions to kind of address and journal through. So I have these 3 questions. What are you best at? What gives you joy? And what do others come to you for help with? I think this can really help you if you're like totally lost and you're like, I really don't know what I'm going to do. And it can even help you in deciding your own research field, if that's something you want to continue, or doing a PhD. Answer these questions and see if any of that matches with that career path, okay? So for me, the answers to these questions were very, very straightforward. I love storytelling. I love community building. I was really good at it. I like bringing people together, like networking and all that. And what gave me joy was always impact. So I wanted to be very purpose, meaning-filled in my career. Money never really drove me, and maybe this is, again, a very privileged thing to say, but when I had the most money in my life, being a workaholic that I was the most miserable, okay? So money was not a factor for me. I knew I could make money out of anything you're good at, right? At least I have a very strong sense of self-belief and abundance mindset. So for me, it was impact. And this impact also came through other values, like having flexibility in my work, having variety of work. So I don't want to just do one thing all day long for 5 years. I want to do several different things. And I wanted to be value aligned and in a collaborative environment. So that's one thing that I also realized through doing research here, was that I enjoyed the aspects that involve other teams. Like, oh, were we like talking about science in different contexts at the lunch table? Was I talking to people from across teams, across departments? Great, that's what I liked. I like collaboration. And then the final one, I think it's an important question because it's a little bit more narrow rather than abstract. What others come to you for help with is actually a great determining factor for how you can sell yourself, okay? So usually you can turn that into a money making. Like I said, money should not be a concern. You can make a career out of anything, but you should make it out of something that people already come to you for. So for me, it was people were coming to me for advice all the time. Like I was like the wise sage Yoda that people would come to. And honestly, I didn't know why. I think I just come across as a very like knowledgeable person, even though like half of the time I don't know what I'm doing. But people would come to me for that. Okay, so that's something that I should maybe tap into. Okay, I'm a resource center, I'm a resource hub. I also had people coming to me for support. Operationally, logistically, running things, getting stuff done. People would coming to me for that. Okay, why is that? Was I really that better than anyone else on it? I don't know, but maybe I can turn that into a career. So these are some questions that are important to ask. And then I always say you should know your why. So know your strengths and know your why. And my why is very, very strangely put. But my why as to why did I become an entrepreneur is because I knew that I didn't like anything else. I tried it out. I tried government work, I tried startups, I tried enough things. I tried academia to know that I didn't like those things, and none of those things aligned with my values as much as potentially a career doing my own thing. And for me, entrepreneurship is one of the biggest paths to impact, and I said I care about impact, that you can find. So I ended up becoming an entrepreneur, not just because I could, because I think anyone can become an entrepreneur, really. I have all types of entrepreneur friends, but not everybody should. And I thought that I should become an entrepreneur because I honestly did not want to do anything else, and this is the best fit for me. And essentially, the 4 pillars of, I think, why should you pick a career in entrepreneurship are these ones. So for me, I had a lot of privilege with my passports. So something for you to consider if you are looking for stability and if you're looking for a direct way, a short way to stay in Sweden, maybe this is not a career that's super safe. But the other pillars also play a role. For example, if you have access to resources, resourcefulness is how much access you have, how much access do you have to money, capital, and human network. So if you have access to investors and you want to start a biotech company, you can do that. You can have access to that money and it's much easier. Oh, the battery is running low. And so if you're looking for a path in entrepreneurship, even as an international student, it will be easier if you go the funding route, right? But I was self-backed, self-funded, so I had a lot of savings, so that was a lot of privilege there. And risk tolerance, like, are you someone who just wants stability, who wants comfort? Then you probably don't want to go into entrepreneurship. It's a very, very shaky water situation, okay? And then the final 2, value alignment and lifestyle, and expect failure but plan for success. So value alignment, I already spoke a little bit about it. I realized that a lot of the things that I cared about were not found anywhere else. And in order to create an environment, a workplace that would fit those needs and those values, I would need to do it myself. And then today I hire people who have those same values. So then I became an employer. And then the last one, expect failure but plan for success. I think this is really important to have a mindset of everything you're going to do is probably going to not work, but you need to enjoy the process in of itself. So you need to enjoy the process of creating, of building, of starting up something. If you don't enjoy that process and you're only in it for the rewards, that's going to be a long time coming. So entrepreneurship might be a difficult path for you. And when I say plan for success, I mean, sometimes people just plan for like the worst case scenario. And I think you should always plan for success, because if you're doing the right thing, if you're value aligned, if you're focusing on your strengths and you're selling those, you will always, okay, not always, 99% of the time you'll be successful if you stick it out long enough, right? So that's one key point for me. I think if you want to become an entrepreneur, you should be willing to do it for the long term, not just 2 years, 3 years. Quick, get rich quick schemes. That is not a thing. Okay, no crypto, nothing like that. Okay, and finally, prepare well in advance. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? I don't want to be a downer. Okay, I know we're going into lunch, but it's a tough job market out there. A lot of the questions I was asking today, it was just to show you and point that out. Okay, and part of the reason why that is because people won't tell you this. Academia is full of people that will gaslight you that you should stay in academia because it's a great place to do research in. But as soon as you have to leave academia, because only 1% of PhDs end up becoming PIs, right? 1%, that's the statistic. Then what do you do next? And they typically don't tell you the truth, which is reality hits hard. Okay, so you heard Julia. She said 6 months. That's the average time that a Swedish person, a Swede, takes to find a job post-graduation. So if you're not Swedish, you're going to take up to from 6 to 18 months. Guess what? Most of the visa extensions for international students, they only last you 1 year, 12 months. So if you need to start looking for a job in order to stay in Sweden, do it now. Start now. Start as soon as possible. And in order to get that job, you need to build that relevant network today. Okay, why am I mentioning this? We heard so many stories here. I didn't even have to interview. Someone found me, they like my vibe. Great. This is amazing. This is like the lucky ones, okay? And I want to really point that out. If not, you're going to be sending applications to a lot of ghost jobs. You're going to be, ghosted by the job process. And I know this because I have a lot of international friends struggling right now to get jobs. So I want to tell you, it's dire out there, but it's not impossible to get a job, all right? And getting internships in companies that are growth ready. And what I mean by this is, do they have funding? You can find this information online. In Sweden, everything is transparent. Do they have the backing of investors that will stay with them through the next 5 years? Do they have a growing team, like actively recruiting, not just fake job ads, okay? This is an important aspect, because if they're not growing, they probably don't have money to sponsor your visa, okay? So if you're an international, that should be important. And then the final things is develop high-value skills. We're going to get to that in a minute. And be aware of anti-immigrant or racist recruitment biases. I said I'm going to be a downer here, but you really need to be aware of this. If you're not white, if you're not European, if you're not Swedish, you're probably going to be dealing with that too. Okay? So, how do you get those high-value skills? How do you know what are high-value skills? I could have told you everything that I learned from this master's, but I actually don't think almost half of it even applies anymore. Okay? So the job market is changing so fast. I checked out this World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report. So disrupted by AI, automation, and you hear this all the time, okay? I'm not giving you any news here. But I'm telling you that it is the reality that you see. And Sweden is just a starting point, because we're also in an economic crisis, in an economic recession, okay? And then there's tariffs, there's a bunch of other shit that's also getting involved in the mix. But I wanted to tell you that not all is lost. There's good news, for you at least, in this room, because a lot of the skills and a lot of the jobs that you could potentially have access to are actually applicable from what I know about the masters. So I don't know if you can tell, if it's too tiny, but big data specialists are actually the most high in demand, fastest growing job markets over the next 5 years. So if you work with big data, like that's amazing. Like you probably, if you leverage that skill set well, you can probably get a job, okay? There's also data analysts and scientists. That applies to you guys. So if you play into that skill set, you show that to the market, you probably can get a job. So this is the good news, all right? But the rest is that employers expect 39% of the workers' core skills to change by 2030. So 40%, okay? So what does this mean? It means that if you're currently in your skill set level, if you're currently not innovating, not reskilling, not upskilling, not upgrading your skill set, you're going to be made redundant in a span of 5 years, okay? So it doesn't matter how you graduate today with a stellar CV or a stellar skill set, you need to upgrade that constantly, and employers are going to expect that from you. So learning mindset, very important. And the final 5 skills, I just really like this report, okay? I read 290 pages of it and I loved it. So the 5 top skills that people expect, employers expect over the next 5 years,
none of them involve science, research, or technology. But they do involve soft skills and critical analytical skills, so thinking skills. And if you can show employers, hey, I have these, be it through my master's or through other things you do outside of the master's, that will be a leverage point for you, okay? So, I just wanted to kind of randomly go through, and because I don't want to ever leave you without more information, more resources, I have my friend Amanda Herzog. She's a career coach in Sweden. She helps a lot of internationals to adjust their CV to Swedish style, improve their interview skills, trying to help them navigate this transition into a very tough Swedish job market. So I would highly recommend you check out her QR code there, because she gave it to me. And she's like, yeah, friend, if someone comes through you, like, I'll make sure that they're ready to go into the market. And she's helped thousands of people get secure jobs at this point, okay? So the sooner you begin, the faster you can maybe get that opportunity, okay? And to conclude, to answer your questions in a minute, I just wanted to say that this is a very dire time. Again, I don't want to underestimate the amount of effort and kind of patience you'll have to have as an applicant. You heard from Julia, there's a lot of people who are struggling to get jobs right now. And the reason why I'm saying this is not to scare you, it's to help you prepare. Start now to build that network, start to talk to people, start to build up that ability to get that next opportunity, okay? Because I don't want you to arrive at the end of your master's and expect a job when that may not happen. If you get it, come and tell me, prove me wrong, okay? Because then I'll be happy for you. I'll still be happy for you. But I'm telling you that the statistics show, average amount of time it takes for an international student especially is 18 months. So 18 months to get a job. And for a Swede is 6 months. So you see the range here. There's a lot of things that are stacked up against you, and I don't want you to graduate thinking, oh, but I got this amazing education and now I can't do anything with it, okay? All right, I think we're about to be done, but I don't know if you want to just break for lunch and then come ask me the questions, but otherwise I'm ready to do the Mentimeter.
I mean, it depends on the people here. Lunch is outside, but we can take some time to answer questions and then we can continue outside.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I also wanted to point out that I brought some books, like career advisory books, a general one for career options for biomedical scientists. It includes entrepreneurship as an alternative path. So if you want to check them out, I can't give them away because I'm usually giving them to loan to other friends. But please do check them out and take a picture if you want to get your own copy. So this might be some good resources for you guys. If you're really lost and you're like, I need to know my options, check these out. I'm going to leave them here over the break so you can come in and see them. Okay, thank you.
That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will try to make more informative kind of breakdown resource videos like this one. And if you happen to have any other ideas about videos you're wondering about, I would love to share some insights and some things that I know with everyone in our audience. So yeah, make sure to subscribe so you're updated whenever we release new content. I know I'm not the most, consistent person out putting videos on this channel. If you want to see a few more interviews I've done under this umbrella, this topic of recruitment, talent acquisition, networking, leveraging your network, check out my company's Experience Stockholm's podcast production. I'm going to link it also down below. There's definitely a lot more insights in these videos, so I think that they're worthwhile also watching. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Hello.